Hi, and welcome to Let's Talk Photography. So another day in the Ontario lockdown and a stay-at-home order. So I'm just working on some lighting and going to try to do a little bit of marketing. So I've just continued from what I did yesterday, and we'll see how it works out. A little bit different today. I used a 3-light setup. A rapid box octa, the rapid box strip, and a background strip to illuminate the background. And I've been shooting with an 85mm and a Nikon D800E. So you'll see how the photos turned out, and I hope you enjoy it. And I'll be hopefully coming on a little more often unless this lockdown stops. Talk to you later. Back to Let's Talk Photography. I've finished taking the pictures, and in this first picture, this one here is straight out of camera. If you look at it, you can see that there's a strip box camera right, an octabox camera left, and another strip box directly behind me illuminating the black background. And I like to do it that way because I know that when I take this into Photoshop, that I might want to put a texture in the background. And I find it's easier to get a nice looking texture in the background if there's some light on it when it's a black background like that. So that's what I've done with this one. This next one is the edited version. I pretty well go through the same editing every time. The first thing I do is I usually crop it out to the way that I want it cropped. Since these are going to be used for marketing and advertising purposes, I'm leaving room on the left side of the photo for text. And I kind of like the imbalance anyway, even if there wasn't text. I kind of like the imbalance. And then the next thing I do is I usually colorize it. I use LUTs in Photoshop. I just find it gives it a better look. And I also always dodge and burn to bring out the highlights and to darken the shadows just to create a little more contrast. I just find it makes the photo pop a little bit more than just the way it is when it comes straight out of camera. And I always do a little bit of sharpening too, especially on when I'm doing headshots, if I'm doing males, and well, not so much for a headshot, more for a portrait. And I'll talk a little bit more about my idea of the difference between headshots and portraits. But in a portrait with a male, I like to make them a little bit grittier than straight out of camera. So I don't mind having, and depending on what the client wants, usually. I know there's a chef that I do. He likes the gritty look, and I do that using the sharpening. And I also add in post a little bit of light to the face just to kind of make it pop a little bit more. And usually when I'm doing these, one of the other things that I do is that once I've done all of the color editing, then I like to convert to black and white, and I use different methods for that. Sometimes just very straightforward. I just go in and desaturate, but there are a lot of other ways, and I'll talk about some of the other ways in other videos of how I go about doing black and white conversions. And then usually my last step is I crop it into a square, specifically for use on Instagram. And I use Adobe Spark Post, and I use some of their templates for text. They have quite a few different fonts and quite a few different effects that you can apply to add text to a photo. And if you've never used Adobe Spark, I'd highly recommend that you do. It's a lot of fun, and it's very easy. I'm by no means a graphic designer, but they give you all kinds of ideas and samples, and you just work from there, and after a while you start coming up with your own designs. and it really is a fun thing to do. Here's another example of the same lighting setup, this time not with the camera up to my eye. And again, this is going to be used for advertising and marketing. And basically, it's very much the same photo as the one with up to the eye, except I dropped the camera down. And here you can see the edited version of the photo. Same deal, a little bit of a different colorizing to it. Just using a different combination of LUTs to come up with a kind of a brownish tinge to it. I kind of like that look. It's kind of reminiscent of the photos that Glenn Dewis does. Actually, I used one of his LUTs on this one to get that effect, and of course the dodging and burning to make the face pop a little bit more. Okay, so here's one of the first ads that I made up for my photography. Again, using Spark Post, and in this one I color graded to get kind of a bluish tinge to the image. In the bottom left-hand corner is my photography logo, simply an aperture icon with Steve Perry Photography headshots and portraits. That's one of them. Here's another one. This one here has kind of a brownish tinge to it. Again, it's the one with the camera up to my face. It says book your appointment now for after the lockdown, because as I've mentioned, we're in a lockdown here in Ontario because of COVID-19. So what I'm doing is I'm booking appointments ahead of time. So far, no takers. Nobody's really thinking too much about headshots or portraits at this time. Just too much other stuff going on. Here's one that I kind of like. It's a little bit different. Kind of a three-color color grading to it. Same thing. Book your headshot session for after the lockdown. And I don't know. I think it has a nice effect. You've got to be careful when you bring these into Instagram. Sometimes they're just a little bit too wide, and the sides get cut off. In one of them, I had my phone number cut off, which is not a good thing. So, but I just added it in text anyway. So, here's another example of again, all of these are done in Adobe Spark. This one here with the big headshot written in, booking now, and the phone number at the bottom. So we'll see if I get any takers on booking appointments ahead of time. There's nobody coming into my home studio right now because of COVID, so I figured that I might as well do some practice in taking self-portraits. Very good practice, and also practice at doing a little bit of marketing. Something that I need to work on a little bit more. And this last example is one that I'm going to use for my headshot story, or for my Instagram stories. It's got that longer portrait orientation to it. Not very much text, pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Again, color graded, kind of in a bluish monochrome type color. So I hope you enjoyed this. It's just, when you can't actually have people into your studio or home studio, still important to keep practicing. And as I mentioned before, I find headshots and portraits, self-portraits, are a good way to keep up the practice, to experiment with different lighting. From going through the different headshots, I'm coming up with lighting that I think is going to be my go-to lighting when I do finally get clients in front of my camera. So anyhow, as I mentioned before, I hope you enjoyed this, and let's keep talking photography, and we'll talk to you later.